witchcraft. Now, I have said that witchcraft establishes an illegitimate authority. Paul said, witchcraft was operating in the churches of Galatia. The first evidence was that they'd lost the vision of the cross. They were no longer clear as to what had been accomplished by the death of Jesus on the cross on their behalf. And when they lost the vision, they began to forfeit the benefits. And the two immediate results, which Paul pinpoints, were carnality and legalism. And I would venture to say to you that in most places where you find carnality and legalism in the church today, the same cause has produced the same effect. We are dealing with witchcraft. Let's look at some of the statements that Paul makes. And let me point out also that the result of witchcraft taking over is that people come back under bondage. Now, bondage is a nice authorized version word that we're used to in religious circles, but a real proper meaning is slavery. And let's say it very simply, witchcraft produces slavery. I'll read a passage in Galatians chapter 4. Paul brings this out. Very remarkable passage. I'm not sure that I fully understand the implications of it, but at least a major part of it is clear. Paul is talking about the difference between the condition of people under the law of Moses and those who become children of God through faith in Jesus Christ. And because children, Paul says, all heirs. And he explains it this way. We're in Galatians 4, beginning at verse 1. Now I say that the heir, as long as he is a child, does not differ at all from a slave, though he is master of all. Paul is pointing out that while Israel were under the law, though they were due to be heirs, they were actually in a condition similar to slavery. He is under guardians and stewards until the time appointed by the Father. Even so we, Paul is talking primarily as an Israelite, even though we, when we were children, were in bondage, slavery to the elements of the world. But when the fullness of the time had come, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those who were under the law. To redeem them from what? From slavery to the law. That we might receive the adoption as sons. And because you are sons, God has sent forth the Spirit of his Son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father. Therefore you are no longer a slave, but a son. And if a son, then an heir of God through Christ. You see, the choice is simple. It's a son or being a slave. But when God's people lose the vision of the cross and what has been accomplished by it, and come back under the influence of witchcraft, they lose the experiential status of sons and become slaves again. So Paul goes on. But then indeed, when you did not know God, you served those which by nature are not gods, false gods. But now, after you have known God, or rather are known by God, how is it that you turn again to the weak and beggarly elements to which desire again to be in slavery? See what witchcraft was doing? It was thrusting them back into a condition of slavery to a natural system. Weak and beggarly elements. You observe days, months, and seasons and years, all aspects of the law. I am afraid for you, lest I've labored for you in vain. That's a stern statement, isn't it? As I pointed out, these people weren't drunkards. They weren't fornicators. But Paul was really, in a way, much more concerned about their condition than he was about the others. And then if you go on a little further in Galatians chapter 5, beginning at verse 1, Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty by which Christ has made us free, and do not be entangled again with a yoke of slavery. What was the yoke of slavery? Legalism. What was pressing that yoke upon them? Witchcraft. Indeed, I, Paul, say to you that if you become circumcised, that is, in order to keep the law, Christ will profit you nothing. And I testify again to every man who becomes circumcised that he is a debtor to keep the whole law. If you once start seeking to achieve righteousness by keeping the law, you've got to keep the whole law all the time. The such thing as keeping part of the law at part of the time. It's either the whole law or all the time, or you cannot achieve righteousness by it. You have become estranged from Christ. You who attempt to be justified by law, you have fallen from grace. Those are tremendously serious words. But the two elements in that situation that I want to focus on are the evil power of witchcraft, the result which it produces, which is slavery. And slavery is manifested in what we call legalism. We look also for a moment in Romans chapter 8, verses 14 through 17. Romans 8, 14 through 17. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, these are sons of God. How do you qualify to be a son of God? By being led by the Spirit of God. Verse 15, for you did not receive the spirit of slavery again to fear, but you received the spirit of adoption by which we cry out, Abba, Father. See again, it's the same alternative. Are you going to be a son, or are you going to be a slave? You've been released from the slavery of the law, but if you go back under the law, you become a slave once again. And the pressure that's causing you to do that is the unseen evil power, is witchcraft. Then again in Romans chapter 8, verse 7 and 8, Paul says, the carnal mind, the fleshly mind, is enmity against God. For it is not subject to the law of God, nor indeed can be. So then those who are in the flesh cannot please God. It doesn't matter how hard you try to please God, if you're doing it out of your fleshly nature, you cannot do it. It is impossible. Those who are flesh cannot please God. When we come under legalism, we come into the flesh, and no matter how hard we struggle and how many rules we observe, how earnest we are, we cannot please God. We have become slaves instead of sons. Now, I said that the effect of witchcraft is to establish an illegal dominion, to set aside the legitimate authority of God and to substitute an illegal dominion. If this is so, then we need to ask ourselves, what is the illegal dominion that is established by legalism? What has it done? What has it reversed of God's plan and God's order? And I would say this: it restores the illegitimate dominion of the flesh, the carnal nature, over the spirit. And the result is slavery. In what way do we see this manifested in the church? Countless ways. But let me offer you a few examples. We place theology above revelation. We place the mind above the spirit. Now, I would say And you're free to question this.